very great for me writing college essays this year. She challenged me to do better, and she gave us a lot of feedback, which I liked, because I knew what I was doing wrong, what I was doing right, what I needed to improve. And next are my math reflections. Freshman year I had Miss Bannock, and I don't really particularly like her teaching style, where you take notes, you do a homework assignment, and then at the end of the 6 weeks you take a test. And I know that works good for some students, but it wasn't interactive enough for me. The next year I had Miss Kuberry, who was a lot more interactive. She had us study a lot of the theories and equations and where they came from. The next year I had Mr. Stevenson, and Mr. Stevenson has been my favorite math teacher because he understood that math was fairly easy for me. I could pretty much get the equations fairly quickly, showing me one time. I could plug in the numbers, and he was fun to get along with. He was a lot more interactive. He was a lot more social with us too, which I liked. He wasn't just really like our teacher, he was like a friend as well. Then this year, senior year, I had Ms. Bannock again, and I still didn't really like her teaching style. She didn't really change it too much, but now that I'm older, I realize that no matter what, I just gotta do what my teacher says and keep the best grade I can. Next are my science reflections, and freshman year, I had started off in Mr. Gordon's class. It was too easy, so Miss Hendrickson had me switch into her analytic class, and it was very interactive. I loved doing the labs. The pig dissection was my favorite. The next year I had Dr. Elliott for chemistry. She was a lot harder for me, not her teaching style, but I just couldn't understand chemistry. Chemistry wasn't my strongest subject. I couldn't understand how to add two elements together. It was very, very hard for me. She helped me a lot though. She gave me extra tutoring and stuff, which I liked a lot. Anytime I wanted to go in after school, she was there to help me. The next year I had Miss Caldwell for physics, and physics was a lot more easier for me because it was more math, it was more equations and numbers, and the labs were a lot more fun. She'd do groups where you transfer from station to station doing the different activities. It was a lot more interactive, which is my favorite type of learning. Next are my social studies reflections. Freshman year, I had Coach Garo, the old football coach. He never really taught us much. We'd watch videos, and I think we only took the end of course as a test. I didn't really benefit from the class. He wasn't very interactive with the students. He never really taught too much. The only assignment I remember doing was a cooking assignment where we had to cook a New Mexico dish, and that was about it. The next year, sophomore year, I had AP World History with Miss Hudgens, and that was a very fun class. It was very beneficial for me because the workload was a lot more, and I got to experience what a college level class would be like. The only thing I wish that it was maybe a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging. She was a very good teacher. I really enjoyed her lectures a lot. Next year, junior year, I had US History with Mr. Cervantes, and he was a fun teacher to have as well. A lot of people don't like him, but I thought he was a cool guy. He had us do a family tree, which was a lot of fun for me because I got to see where my family roots went and where everybody came from, which was very interesting to me. The next year I took AP Economics and AP Government, and these two have been my favorite social studies classes because it's what's happening in the world now and how it has changed in the past from in the last 50 years, and how it's always ever changing, and all the different equations they use to calculate all the ways that the US economic system and government changes. Next are my elective reflections, and I just want to talk about my favorite electives from each year. Freshman year, my favorite elective was, of course, PE. Being a boy running around playing sports was so much fun. I had Coach Henry. He was a fun guy to be around. He made it very, very fun. He was always running around with us as well. He was a very active PE coach. Next, my sophomore year, I want to say my computer graphics class was my favorite because we got to work a lot with Photoshop, and I never really worked with computers a lot, and it was interesting to see how the technology that we have today can change magazines, change news articles, so many other things. My favorite assignment in that class was we designed a chocolate bar for the school, and we had to actually make the template for the box of the chocolate bar and the wrapper and everything. That was very fun to do. And we could actually print out the nutrition facts and how everything is basically done on the computer. It was fun. Junior year, my favorite elective would have to be art, because it was all my interpretation on any assignment. She just gave us a basic rubric to follow, and it was very fun for me. You never had to follow any guidelines. It was how you interpreted the assignment, and it was based on your own imagination. Senior year, my favorite class would have to be French, and I like French because Mr. Kofer has a way with interacting with the children, and he not only just teaches us the language, but he teaches us a lot about the culture. And he relates the French that we learn into words that we would use every day, even just with our friends. And we not only just write it down, we do speaking with him, and that's my favorite because it's a way to learn way to understand what I have learned through the class and how much I can know actually having a conversation with somebody. And then, yeah, that's why it's my favorite class in here. Next are my interests and hobbies, and ever since I was little, I've always been in sports. My mom put me in baseball and soccer when I was very little, but I never really got too into it, and like running up and down for soccer and baseball was just too slow for me. I started wrestling in 3rd grade, and I instantly fell in love with the sport, and football in 4th grade, which was also a lot of fun. Wrestling for me has been my favorite because you have to have a lot of discipline to do it. And it's probably the hardest sport I've ever done out of anything I've ever done. And it's helped me a lot with school and making me disciplined and make sure I have my work done so that way I could compete. I am a 3-time state placer, 2-time district champion. I was on the New Mexico national team. I got to travel all over the country, which was amazing. The only thing I regret is not being able to travel over the world and going to the tournament in Australia because I couldn't make the team because of a broken arm. Football was also fun. It just wasn't my favorite. I had a hard time having to rely on other teammates. That's why wrestling was a lot easier for me because it's individual. Next, my goals and aspirations. And next year in the fall, I will be attending UNM. I want to study nursing. My goal is to enter the College of Nursing by the end of the year, by the first year and a half of my sophomore year. Nursing is something that my aunt did, and it was very interesting to me because I want to help people. I want to help cancer patients and people with disabilities, veterans from Iraq coming back with disabilities, no limbs, helping doing rehabilitation, and it's just something I've always wanted to do. I want to graduate in 4 years, minimum. In 2 years, I want to be able to save enough money, move out of my parents' house. After college, I want to continue my education and become a nursing practitioner, maybe become a doctor. Next is my student involvement, and these 4 years at Albuquerque High, I've been highly involved in sports, wrestling, football, and cross country. I was a 4-year letterman in wrestling, 3 years in football, and 1 year in cross country. I was also a junior escort, and I was on the homecoming court. And homecoming court and junior escort were very fun. Homecoming court week was very fun to be a part of. The pie fight was my favorite. It was a great time. Next, I included my certificate of name change, and I changed my name from Paul Garcia to Paul James Orr-Salazar. And I did this because I'm named after a man who wasn't really around, who wasn't my father, and I changed it to my dad's last name and sorry. My grandpa's maiden name, which is Salazar. And this is very important to me because thank you. this was very important to me because this is the name that I wanted on my diploma. I didn't want to graduate as Paul Garcia because I felt that being named after this man was very hard for me, and sorry.
I think you're the third. It's the third one today.
Yeah.
That's senior exit portfolios. You're not the only one. If it makes you feel better.
You're the only one with name change.
So yeah, this was something that was very important to me because I wanted to graduate as my own person, my own man, and I didn't want to have to live up to anything that he thought I had to be because he was never around. And then next, I have awards and other things. I was a second team all district for football, 4-year district champ. I also included a letter. I have a letterman over there too that my brother is holding. I have an academic letter, 3 football letters, 4 wrestling, and a cross country letter.